Radicals are coming out of the woodworks and the foundations of the country are being attacked. Now, it's been attacked for about 100 years or so. If you watch any Van Jones, you'll see that he always says, you know, this country has been great for 100 years. Wait a minute. We're more than 100 years old, Van. It's because he counts America being a great nation as soon as the progressive era started. Most of the destruction of this country was done subversively because they know that they wouldn't win. It still is. It's why the president won't admit that he's got severe case of Marxism. Now we have a full frontal attack on our country right out in the open, and it's going to get worse. I'm telling you, this president will say, yeah, you're right, I am a socialist. So what? These socialist policies, they work. The capitalist system doesn't work. You watch, it'll happen. It'll happen. They're getting closer and closer to saying those kinds of things and revealing themselves for who they are, and it won't matter at that point. This is their chance to strike the final blow to what most of them hate, and that is the Republic. They really are. The reason why people say they're elites is because they really do believe that it's the stupid people that get in the way of progress. And there's just not enough people that have been Harvard educated. They know better. Look what's being argued right now by serious and influential people. Peter Orszag, he is the former director of the Office of Management and Budget under Obama. He just published a short piece last week saying, quote, "Too much of a good thing, why we need less democracy." He's actually arguing that political polarization is hampering progress, and that's because partisan politics have us gridlocked here. Well, he's right, except his conclusion, quote, "harming Washington's ability to do the basic necessary work of governing. His solution, minimize the harm from legislative inertia by relying more on automatic policies and depoliticize commissions for certain policy decisions." In other words, as radical as it may sound, we need to counter the gridlock of our political institutions by making them a bit less democratic, end quote. While the rest of the world is clamoring for democracy and saying we need democracy, they're democracy movements, this guy is actually saying we need less democracy. Is that standing out to anybody? It's radical, Peter. It is radical. It's actually more un-American, ruled by automatic policies and commissions. Here's what's amazing is this is exactly what Edward Mandel House wrote. Anybody know who Colonel House is? Colonel House, come on, raise your hand. Nobody knows who Colonel House is? Oh, of course you don't know who Colonel House is. Colonel House is one evil dude. Colonel House was one of the guys who helped design the Versailles Treaty. Tell me about the Versailles Treaty. Anybody? What?
World War I.
World War I, end of World War I. What did the United States not provide for Germany at the treaty, the signing for the treaty for Versailles? Nobody's been taught this either. It's amazing. With malice towards none. People hated Abraham Lincoln's idea of give Lee an easy surrender. Let them go home and go back to work with malice towards none. Treaty of Versailles, you remember now?
It was World War I. The Americans and the Allies actually crushed Germany and made them forcibly weaker.
No. What did they not provide at the Treaty of Versailles? Something very simple. You're sitting on one. A chair.
A chair, yeah, there's no set.
There were no chairs for the Germans to sit down at the treaty to sign the treaty. And they did it intentionally. And when they said, are there no chairs for us? They looked up and said, I guess you should have thought of that before you started killing people. With malice towards none. Colonel House is the guy who helped design that. He's also the guy who helped design the Council of Foreign Relations. He's one of the guys who was right there at the beginning of progressivism. He was there at the beginning of eugenics. He's big into this. He's big into propaganda. He's one of the big progressive thinkers. He wrote a book, and I think it is one of the worst books I've ever read. And I only read it because I was reading about Woodrow Wilson. And in reading about Woodrow Wilson, this book brought up maybe 3 times a book called Philip Drew Administrator. And Philip Drew Administrator is this story. It's a horrible novel, but Wilson read it 3 separate times. And it's a story about this hero. The premise was the Constitution was hampered and got in the way of this great progress. And Philip Drew was there. Instead of ratifying and changing the Constitution, they just needed to figure out ways to operate around it. Quote, "We have lagged behind other nations in democracy. Our government is perhaps less responsive to the will of the people than that of almost any civilized nation. Our Constitution and our laws served us well for the first 100 years of our existence, but under the conditions of today, they're just not only obsolete, but even grotesque. Can you not hear a politician in America almost say those very words today? Our Constitution was great, but it just doesn't work anymore." The solution in Philip Drew mirrors Orszag. Drew selected another board of 5 lawyers, and he gave them the task of performing legal procedure and pruning down the existing laws. Then he created another board of even greater ability to read and digest and criticize the work of the other 2 boards. And they report their findings right directly. They cut the people out because it was too burdensome. Sound familiar to anybody? It's for your own good. We just want to help it. Golly, that darn outdated Constitution is just getting in the way. We have to bypass it. Now, if you think that's an isolated incident, let me give you this. The North Carolina Democratic governor, Bev Perdue, she originally said that this was a joke. But I want you to listen because the audio now has surfaced. I want you to listen to this. And I want you to tell me, does this sound like a joke? She says the best thing we can do to help our nation is to suspend elections just for a couple of years. Hugo Chavez, is that you? I warn you, hold your sides because they're split wide open because this is so funny. Listen.
I think we ought to suspend perhaps elections for Congress for 2 years and just tell them we want to hold it against them, whatever decisions they make, to just let them help this country recover. I really hope that somebody can agree with me on that. Just the one good thing about Raleigh is that for so many years we've worked across party lines. It's a little bit more contentious now, but it's not impossible to try to do what's right for the state. You want people who don't worry about the next election.
What a hoot, huh? Oh, man, she'll be at Yuck Yucks on Friday and Milk Through Your Nose on Saturday. That's the worst joke teller of all time. Makes the bow tie and piano guy on PBS look like a riot. The governor was not kidding. Does anybody think she was kidding? Does that sound like a joke to anyone?
GBTV. The truth lives here.